defenders. You are one of the best defenders this country has ever produced. London boy. Just give us a little flavour of your early life.
Yeah, my mum was a nurse and my dad was a carpenter. So they was working, you know, London's always been an expensive place. So they were at work all day long. And I had three brothers. And we were just in the park all day long. So as soon as my mum went down the road, we went to the park, played football. And my oldest brother was a terrific footballer as a youngster. And he had a really bad accident at school, which means he couldn't really, he was literally on crutches for 3-4 years. Right. So he taught me to play. And I started off playing for the local Sunday team, and got involved playing the year above and 2 years above. And Tottenham Hotspur came in for me. And I was training down there and playing down there, which is a massive accolade for a youngster, you know. And I didn't ever think I was really good enough to be a footballer, to be truthful. No, but I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed playing the best I could. I got to 16, they released me, and I was quite lucky because there was a reserve team manager who, Tottenham, a guy called Robbie Stepney, who thought I had half a chance. And he put me in touch with Villa and Manchester United. And I was quite lucky because I went to Villa and I went to Man United, went to Birmingham, and I played against Forest twice on trial against them two clubs.
I see.
And that's where the link became, because on the way home, Forest rang me to come down to them on trial because I played against them.
Peter Taylor, who's one half of obviously a legendary partnership with Brian Clough, played quite a big part in you eventually signing for Forest. So when does he get involved in the story?
Because the John Sheridan was the most junior coach who wanted to sign me. But he didn't really have that big authority. And I think he asked Peter Taylor, who did, to come down and have a look at me on playing in the A team. So Peter had that final say and said, sign him. So it was his actual final say who got me signed. But John Sheridan definitely backed me. He thought I was going to go all the way. I'm not sure what he saw that no one else saw, but he thought I was going to go all the way.
It sounds like he saw things you didn't actually see in yourself. Is that fair?
Like,
yeah, you weren't sure you could make it, but he was.
No, I didn't. I remember I walked through the door with Anderson was coming back from the 1982 World Cup. He'd just come back. He came in late because we were there a week before. And John Sheridan said to me, you'll be as good as him one day. And I remember thinking to myself, I think you're on drugs. This guy's just come back from the World Cup. And I think it's very easy to say you're going to be. He is. You know, he's done it. And I was lucky enough to go to a World Cup. But at the time, to say, do I think I was ever going to... No, not even close. I don't think I was in the same ballpark.
Do you remember when you first came across Brian Clough? Remember when you first met him?
First time you see him, you kind of think, he's larger than life. And I think it took a long time to get used to him, really.
Yeah. In fact, did you ever completely get used to him?
I think you've got to be comfortable. I think to play for Brian Clough, you've got to be comfortable. You can't be scared. You've got to have respect, massive respect. I think the closest person I've ever seen to him, really, ever seen to Brian Clough, is Donald Trump. And they've got the same aura in terms of you don't know what he's going to do next. You don't know if you're going to play you, kiss you, cuddle you, leave you out, sack you, give you a new contract. Sometimes when you went to his office, you weren't sure what was happening. And I think they're both very confident and full of themselves, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And Brian Clough, rightly so. He'd won everything there is to win. And I think he was, for me, the best manager I ever come across by a long way.
I heard you talking quite recently, actually, about starting as a striker and gradually kind of moving down the pitch and playing as a full-back. And I think it was a youth game where you were marking Mark Walters, who went on to have a top career himself. And Clough saw that, Brian Clough saw that, and maybe that changed things for you.
Yeah, I came as a right back. Yeah. I wasn't a centre half. And I quite lucky, I got in the reserves, which is as a 16-year-old in a big squad of European winning team. And I remember my first reserve game, it had Justin Fashanu up front. It was bought for 1.1 million. It had Ian Wallace for 1 million and Peter Ward for 750 grand at the time. That was a reserve team strike force. And we were playing Villa, and Mark Walters, who'd been in the first team and done really, really well when he was an England youth team player, and he was playing up front, And Clough decided, well, the most experienced player in our youth team's Des. Play him centre-half against Mark Walters because he'll destroy everyone else. And it was a good game. And we had a good battle. He scored a hat-trick. He scored a hat-trick. Yeah, he did. You know what I mean? And we come in, we lost 3-0. And I came in and sat down, we lost 3-0. It's disappointing. Everyone's been judged. And Clough was going mad at different people. And he stopped at me and he said, son, if we had 10 others like you, we'd have won 3-0. By the way, you're a centre-half. That's your position. Well played. And from then on, I played centre-half.
As a teenager, you signed for the mighty Nottingham Forest, the double European Cup champions. In the year you made your first team debut, Forest came third and got to the semi-finals of the UEFA Cup. You're working for the great Brian Clough. How exciting, but also daunting was that?
I think when I look back on it, it's probably the best start you can have. One, the manager, by far. But the best thing about when I look back on it is the team that was basically the European team that I started with. They've created a standard, best in Europe. It's up to you to drag yourself up to them. And I think when you've got something to claw, to drag in, to try and get above, that can only help you as a player. I think, if I probably started off at the 4th division, I might have just ended up a 4th division player. Because that's the standard I'm dragging myself up to. And also that I wanted Brian Clough to say, you're a good player. I think every player who plays for Brian Clough, you want him to respect you as a good player.
Tell us about the story, which on the surface is a very odd story, but actually speaks to how he kind of got the best out of you. There's one half time, right, where he just basically was rubbing your legs the whole half time. And tell us about that, but also why you think he was doing it, because that's significant, I think.
We came in at half time and we're 1-0 up. And we're playing against a top team, would be Liverpool or Man United, but probably Liverpool. And we've got ourselves 1-0 up. We've done all right. We come in at half time and I sit down and Clough head this way and he'd come in and he'd look around and there'd always be 2 or 3 young apprentices hanging around to get lads what he wants. And he'd say, get Desmond a cup of tea. I always had tea at half time. Get Desmond whatever he wants. Do you want a whiskey, son? And I said, no, thanks. Do you want another cup of tea? No, thanks. And there's always biscuits. So get him a biscuit, and in the meantime, he'd get me some DP. And he'd get a DP, and he'd get on his hands and knees, and he'd start rubbing away at my legs. And I'll be sitting there thinking, he's lost the plot. Because I think, what's he doing rubbing my legs? Yeah. Rubbing in DP. Anything else you want, son? No, I'm fine, thanks. I'll just sit back and chill, and he's just rubbing my legs. Then he would stand up, about 2 minutes to go. He hasn't done no team talk, he said nothing to nobody. And there's always a ball in the middle of the dressing room on a towel, so it doesn't roll away. And he'd say, now then, this is what we play with. You need to get it first before you can pass it. Get the ball. And we go, and that's it. And you go out second half, and Liverpool are coming at you, 100 mile an hour. And you start to realise what he's trying to say by rubbing my leg is that we need you second half. Liverpool are going to be coming at us, and if you ain't at your very, very, very best, we're going to get battered. So I'll get you whatever you want. I'll do anything for you. I'll rub your legs. I'll give you a few bob. He'll do anything to get a result. And that's Brian Clough. He'll do anything to get a result.
I think we should explain for people who maybe didn't have the privilege of seeing you the type of defender you were.
I think my biggest strength is reading the game. I think I wasn't really big, so the most centre forwards are stronger than me, bigger than me. I was 11 stone 11, so quite light. And unlike 100 metres where Usain Bolt, he has to stay in lane. So if he's quicker than somebody, no one can catch him. With myself, as soon as I move, an arm come out, and it was usually a big, strong arm, stronger than mine. So your first movement, I always think, is the most important, not after that. So it's reading it. So if I can get off that mark before someone's arm comes out, before then it puts me in a better position. My pay sometimes helps someone else out of trouble, but I like to think that I was always most of the time in a good starting position and ready to go.
For a centre-back in that era, were you 5'11"?
5'11",
11-ish
yeah.
stone. Not a big guy, coping with Quinn, John Fashanu, Alan Smith, Graham Sharp, those types of players.
Cyril Regis.
So basically every team had a target.
Tony Cunningham, he's endless.
Yes.
Some of the beat. Everyone had a big target man generally.
So how are you dealing with that?
I remember the first time I played against Quinny, and I was playing with John Metcalf, and John Metcalf's 6'5", but John Metcalf was really a centre half, fantastic ball player, fantastic passer of the ball. Didn't really like the physical side of the game. And Clough said, there's a guy on their side making his debut. He's about 6'5". John Metcalf, when he sees him, he won't fancy playing against him because John thinks he's the only person in the world at 6'5". So can you take him? And I went out there and Quinny's like that. And I've edited it reasonable. But minute before half time, Quinny goes up, flicks one on. John's sleeping. He goes through with 1-0 down. So Clough comes in at half time and he says, now then, son, how tall are you? I said, 5'11". He said, how tall is the player you're playing against us? 6'3". He said, probably 6'5", son. I said, what's your job? I said, edit and tackle. He said, yeah. He said, son, it's not my fault you're 5'5", 5'11". But if you don't edit, then find yourself another job. So I found a way of editing it.
Got to ask you about New Year's Day, 1992. Remember why that was special?
I was leading goal scorer for Nottingham Forest, I think.
On that day?
On that day. But it was the first day of the year. So, yeah, we played Luton and I scored played a 1-2 against Luton. We were 1-0 down near about the 92nd minute or something like that. And then smashed in one of the top corner. Now, the problem with it was Steve Sutton was in goal for Luton and he was our goalkeeper on loan. So people said he chucked it in. But the truth of the matter was, if you'd have put two goalkeepers in, they wouldn't have saved it.
We should clarify, because again, some people watching might not know, you didn't get many, Des, did you? In fact.
I only got, no, the official books say I got one. And I only got one, but I like to think it's a team game. And I claim some of Pierce's other 99. Because he didn't really play left back. I played left back as centre half and he played somewhere up there, so we shared them out over the years.
I wanted to ask you about the 91 FA Cup final. I know it's not a happy memory for you, but Arsene Wenger always talks about like every great football person will have kind of a scar on the heart. Would that be a big one for you?
Yeah. I think you grew up, didn't you, the FA Cup final. I think one of the first things you watch is FA Cup final. It's the big showpiece. It's a massive day. So for me to score an own goal was devastating, to be truthful. And I sometimes look at it and I think I'm moulding myself on consistency. And probably every Forest fan, if you think the one person who wasn't going to let them down on the day, they'd probably say it was Des. And so in terms of, I look back on it, it's a massive disappointment. In terms of, would I do the same thing again? Yeah, I just got to stick my head there. I've stuck it there a million times. It will go in once every blue moon. It just happened to be the FA Cup final. So there's a regret, obviously, but you can't change things. What's to be is to be. You know, and I don't regret my career, and I don't regret the way I went about it. So when I look back on it, yeah, it'd been nice. Obviously it's a great thing to win, and it'd been nice for Forest to win, and it'd been nice for Clough to have won it, you know, because he hadn't won it. So I kind of got tired with that, really, of costing him the one he hadn't won. And I think he weren't quick to remind me every now and again, but it is what it is.
The other end of the scale would be Italia 90, right? Transformative tournament, really.
Yeah, I think in the worldwide stage, it put me out there. I think a lot of Italian, Spanish clubs came in for me at the time, but I think for me, it's a pinnacle playing for your country. And the biggest pressure, the biggest high. And the World Cup is a pinnacle of that. You know, you wait 4 years for it, and all of a sudden it's there. And the expectation of the nation is on you. And we probably went in there a little bit under pressure. I think the press were a little bit unkind to Bobby Robson and a few of the players. And they banned the press and no one spoke to the press, which puts you under more pressure. Me, it didn't bother me, but it put the lads under more pressure. And but we made us stick together, and it was a fantastic experience. And I was lucky that the 1990 World Cup, I think that changed the course of football worldwide. I think the Italians know how to put a show on, and they put a proper show on. And I think the Premier League was born on the strength of that.
People say that, don't they?
And I think everything in football was born. That's the way football went, and it's going to be a little bit more kind of Americanized, a little bit more, glitzy.
Yeah.
And to play in it then was amazing. It was absolutely an amazing tournament. And to be fair, I've always said it, and Brian Robson, for me, is the best footballer I've had the pleasure of playing with.
Right.
And if he stays fit, I think we win the World Cup. I think we was that far off it, and he gives you a lot more than that, and he was our captain. So it was a bit unfortunate.
You raced the 50 caps. Your first name on the team sheet for a good few years. I think you were and are the quickest player to 50 caps.
Yeah.
And then, basically, when you lose your place, that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's very disappointing for me. I was 27, my last cap, which is probably when you're supposed to be coming into some caps.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I read that again.
And I was disappointed because not only did I not get in the England team, I was out of the squad, and I'm not so sure that was deserved. As I say, I went from 60 to 0 in the quickest possible time ever. I don't think it helped me not speaking to the press, and I think Fleet Street at the time were very, very powerful at a time when Terry Venables took over, who is very close to Fleet Street. So a lot of players, a lot of centre halves came in immediately after I got left out, that probably only played 1 and 2 caps, probably were maybe not good enough for England. So there's a disappointment. I think myself, I could compete against some of the players they were playing, but obviously the manager didn't think so.
Probably the biggest stick that was used to beat you with is the Mark Overmars, the conceding the penalty against him, right?
Yeah. I went on the pitch to not make mistakes, and so I'm happy to be criticised for anyone I did. You can't sit there and think you want to be protected. You're at the highest level. So I was lucky to get 59 caps. There's not many people get 59 caps, and I'm proud of every single one of them. I was just gutted I couldn't play for my country for longer.
How did you find Italy and Sampdoria, where you actually played for a future England manager in Sven-Goran Eriksson? I don't think that was the easiest year for you. Right? No, that was probably the most difficult year I had in my whole career. In terms of I played left back a lot of times, and I'm not comfortable at left back. I can get by, but when you get to a certain level in football, getting by is not enough. You got to excel. So, but I didn't help myself at times in the first 2 months. It took me a bit of time to settle, and I didn't probably do myself as much justice at centre half for the first 2 months. Then they moved me left back, so it was disappointing. I went there solely to play against the best in the world. And to come back after a year, I was disappointed. They wouldn't. I wanted to stay and go to another club, but they didn't. They wouldn't let me happen, just in case I embarrassed them or proved them wrong. Well, when you came back and you also had a really good stint with Sheffield Wednesday, the glitz and glamour of like the Premier League. So when you came back, the Premier League had kicked in. Was it different? Because on one level, I suppose the name has just changed, but I think time proved it was more than that, right?
In my time at Sheffield Wednesday, there was changes, and players started to come over here. The money started to change, and players started coming. The foreigners started to come in, and so
Di Canio.
That changes a lot, because all of a sudden you're bringing in players that people don't normally see, worldwide players, and to be fair, as a footballer, it's brilliant to play against some of the best in the world, because I went to Italy for that reason. Now you're bringing them over here, so it was, for me, it was brilliant, because as much as you live in, as much as you want to win, for me, there was also an element that playing against the best. I think that's the real, for me, going against the best, going out on top, trying to win a game playing against the best in the world, Liverpool, trying to beat them. That elation of everybody doing a job and you doing your job and coming out top was money can't buy.
When the time came to hang up your boots, did you find that quite difficult? I read something somewhere where you likened it to like a soldier returning to civilian life. Did you find that a really like tough period in your life?
Yeah, I think from the age of 16, yeah, your life's dictated. So you get there, and I remember Carol was clubby secretary, and I didn't even book holidays. I'd go in and say, Carol, I only go to Spain. She'd book holiday. You didn't do nothing for yourself. You didn't need to. So everything's catered for, everything's dictated for, everything, you know, all the way along. All you got to do is play well. There's one job you got, play well. And then you get I got to 39, and so off you go. And I just think you walk out with your boots, and what am I going to do next? And listen, it doesn't matter how much money you've amassed, it's got nothing to do with it. What are you going to do next? Purpose. What in your life, what purpose have I got now? And I think every footballer must have gone for it. Some footballers probably, and that I've known, quite clever, at 28, 29, they're planning for that. I can't plan for that. I can't plan for my own demise because I'm just bringing it forward. Because once our mentality goes into that I'm going to do something next, that's now, I've lost an edge on that. And it's the edge that made me the player I was. So I had two youngest children, so I think that helps you because obviously you become second best quite quickly anyhow, and the children take over. So, but it's only so many school runs you can do before you get bored. So you find different things to do.
What eventually fills the void? What do you do?
I don't know, because initially I didn't necessarily want to go into coaching. I didn't necessarily wanted to go, because I always, would I fancy being a manager? Probably, yeah, but I think you have to give your children up. I don't think your family gets put aside, and I weren't willing to do that because they were young when I retired. So I kind of kept out of football, and I don't know really. I drove. I took my 8 Class 1. I drove Arctics for my mate for a while. Yeah. I still drive them now. Yeah. And I just kept myself busy. Do you know what I mean? Really.
How did you find that, going to be a lorry driver, doing an ordinary job?
I found it easy, you know, and even you do 15 hours and 16 hours and people get tired and they say it's a hard job. I found everything easy after football, because I think in football, you've learned to push yourself through pain levels that are not normal. So anything else thrown at me is is easy. And I think that now, nothing really bothers me, do you know what I mean? You know, pain, you get used to pain, you just go through it. So I kind of used my background to go and do anything else.
I think it's the right place to end, but it's great to meet you, Des. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure.